at CKMW this today. I promised I would tell them first. I intend to seek the leadership of the BC Liberal Party. So many of you in the room today, so many old friends, so many old acquaintances, people that I've worked with over the years, worked with to make British Columbia better, worked with to make the BC Liberal Party stronger, worked with to keep the NDP out of power, worked with to make sure that patients are at the heart of healthcare, students are at the heart of education, that our economy is strong. Those are the things that we have worked for over the years as we've worked together. And we have, all of us, together, not one of us, all of us have accomplished a lot. I think it's reasonable to ask anyone who has spent 4 years, who has spent 10 years in public life, which is indisputably very, very difficult, and then spent 4.5 years in private life, why they would go back. Why am I running for office? Well, I'll tell you why I'm running. Because I think it's time for us to put power back in the hands of the people of British Columbia. I think it's time for British Columbia's government to be more open and responsive to the citizens of the province. It's time for a vibrant debate within our political party. Let's have a political party where we can have real debates and discussions, where we can disagree and then find common ground, where we can have delegate selection meetings and party meetings and conventions, where it's about ideas, where it's about input. Because that's why we all belong to political parties, isn't it? We join parties because we want to make a difference, and you're all here because you want to make a difference, and that's why I'm here today too. That's why I've always believed in public service, because I want to make a difference. My belief in public service is something that came to me honestly. It came to me from my parents. My mother was a family counselor, and my father was a school counselor. And every day he would go to school, and he would spend it working with kids who have experienced some of the worst things you can experience in life, hopefully things that most of you in this room have never experienced. Lives of neglect, or abuse, or drug addiction. And he would spend his days helping those children reach deep inside themselves to find a shred of optimism. Optimism that their lives could be better in the future than they are today. He helped them navigate the turmoil that they felt around them so that they could reach higher. That was his form of public service as a teacher. And that's what's called me to public service throughout my life. I believe, just as you do, just as he did, in optimism. And I believe that there is an optimistic heart in British Columbia, a province that can be better than it is today. We're doing great, but we can always do better, ladies and gentlemen. If we work together, if we put our hands together and our voices together, if we open up government in British Columbia for citizens, if we all feel like we can get in and make a difference and be part of a change, we can build that optimism for this province, and we can, on a big scale, do what my dad did on a small scale. We can make a difference for the nation. Now, when I was an MLA, I always believed that government should not represent itself to citizens. I always believed that government should be responsive to citizens, that we should flow the information up rather than flow the information down. That an MLA's job was to represent their constituents in Victoria, not for Victoria to represent itself back in communities. I often experience, though, as many elected representatives do, that it works the other way around, and that government is closed and unresponsive for people, that when you go and you knock on that door, you often find that no one answers. Or that if they do, they'll close it in your face. And I have never, ever lost my resolve to wanting to change that. I spent 4.5 years on radio, talking to British Columbians all over the province. And one of the things I learned is that people are full of great ideas out there. And they need to be listened to. People have a hunger to be heard. And I loved that job, and I learned from that job. I learned that if you allow people a chance to use their imaginations, to unleash their ideas, our province will be a better place. I stepped out of Victoria, and I got a fresh perspective on what's going on in the province. And we did things when I was there at CKNW. We had an anti-bullying program that I started on my show. I know you'll all be wearing pink shirts this year in our 4th year, because CKNW is still going to be doing it. This is a project that has a life of its own. One that, again, speaks up for the underdog, that helps people who are feeling lost and alone. It's a project that so many of you participated in, and it was an example, I think, of turning talk into action, of responding to people's concerns and trying to do something about them. I saw the need when I was at CKNW for the province to get tuned in again to families, and that's what we're going to do with this campaign. We are going to tune British Columbia back into the families of this province, and I am going to pursue a families first agenda. About that. It's because families are where we all learn the basic principles of kindness and respect and compassion. That's where those things are baked into us. Families are the building block, the fundamental building block of our communities. It's what builds a civil society. Healthy families always lead to healthy societies. And some have said that it takes a village to raise a family. I would argue equally, it takes a family to raise a village. And so in this campaign, we are going to talk about some of those issues that are important to families and villages and towns and cities all across this province. We will talk about the rural economies of our community, of our province, not as a thing of the past, but as a thing not just of the present, but as a thing of the future. Rural communities that are sustained by a resource economy that is crucial, not just to rural communities, but to the biggest forest-dependent economy in the province, in Vancouver. We will talk about putting patients at the center of healthcare and making sure that healthcare is sustainable in the long term. We'll make sure that First Nations are respected and included very much in the future of our province. We'll talk about diversity. One of the things about diversity that I know, having grown up here, is that this is a very different British Columbia from the one it was when I was born in 1965, or when I went to Marlborough School in 1972. And it's going to be a very different British Columbia again in 20 years. Why? Because people are coming from all over the world to be here. People want to be in British Columbia. And I want this to be a crossroads. It is a crossroads. It's a crossroads where we live. But it's a crossroads where we can also truly thrive. Where we can thrive for families to make this the greatest place. The Premier has often said this is the greatest province and the greatest country in the world, and he's absolutely right. Now, one of the issues that we will also talk about is the HST. I believe that the HST process was fatally flawed from the outset. I am concerned, I must tell you, about proceeding with a tax to which the public is so deeply opposed. I am also concerned, though, about scrapping a tax that provides billions of dollars in revenue for the province. And these are huge decisions that we need to make as a government. But we have to end the uncertainty of the HST. We have to do more than just wave a magic wand and hope it'll go away. Because I think we all wish we could put off the day of reckoning just another day. Or, perhaps, some wish they could sell you the HST with your own money. Over the course of this leadership campaign, I'm going to listen to British Columbians and I'm going to consult. Consultation that I think is long overdue. Other candidates have said they want to move up the date of the referendum. And I wholeheartedly agree with getting this out of the way as fast as we possibly can. But there is another option for us to consider. Let us consider putting the proposed referendum question to a truly free vote of the Legislative Assembly. And you know how that question goes. That this House is in favor of extinguishing the harmonized sales tax. Now, if this process is successful, it would put the HST behind us by March 31st. If it's successful, we would notify the federal government immediately of our intention to withdraw after the 18 months notice that's required in the agreement. We would start to negotiate with them to get out earlier than the 5-year agreement currently allows. And unfortunately, it would mean going back to the GST and the PST. But we won't revisit the HST for another 5 years. It is time for British Columbia to have certainty around this question. This option has been discussed at length by caucus in the past. I know that. But much has changed. Both political parties in this province are now seeking new leadership. Much has also not changed. After almost a year, the public still hates the HST. And I think we need to face some hard realities here. And that is, if this goes to a referendum, a real referendum, the HST will almost certainly fail. We need to take our heads out of the sand on that. And we need to get on with restoring our economy. No one is served by uncertainty. We need to start thinking about how we're going to move forward, how we're going to restore the economy, how are we going to make productivity an important part of the government agenda. How are we going to make our economy more productive? It's a debate that's long overdue with Liberal members. And I think that this is an option we need to put on the table as we have that debate. Let's remember, a revitalized NDP isn't going to give us a pass on the HST. And well before this campaign is over, I'll come back to party members, after having spoken to the public, members of the party, members of the public across British Columbia, and tell you what I think is the best option for moving forward. But whatever the option we choose on the HST, we have to redouble our efforts in terms of productivity. We have to be thinking about creative ways for new investment tax credits. We need to be thinking about investing in infrastructure. What about interprovincial trade and knocking down some of those barriers that make us so inefficient? So just as I am not going to form my HST policy on the back of an envelope for you today, I'm going to spend some time thinking with party members about how we're going to revitalize the economy in the long term.